Hey guys, it's Miss Vinson. I know we've been working with cost and productivity terms, but now instead of talking about bills, it's time to talk about some revenue coming in and some profit that we get to keep. So what I'm going to teach you today are the different revenue and profit terms that we're going to be working with. Now, even though these are going to be new terms for you, I want you to see the pattern that has been happening throughout this entire unit. First off, we talked about total output, average product, and marginal product. Then we talked about different types of total cost, average cost, and then marginal cost. So when we get ready to do our revenue and our profit terms today, we're just going to follow that same pattern. Now, our first revenue term is not exactly a new term for you. It's one we've actually worked with before, and that is going to be total revenue. Now, remember the difference between revenue and profit. Revenue is the money that you have coming in, but you don't get to keep all that money because you have to pay your cost. Whatever's left over after you pay your cost, that is your profit. That is what you get to keep and put in your pocket. So right now we're just talking about the revenue. So remember, total revenue, this is all of the money that you have coming in whenever you sell all of your output. So all of the money that you're bringing in from everything that you've sold. Do you remember how to find total revenue? Price times quantity, right? Total revenue is just the price that you're charging times the number of things you sold. Well, if total revenue is the money that you're bringing in from selling everything, then average revenue, which is going to be our next term, is going to be the money that you bring in when you sell one item. Now, the pattern that we learned with our costs still remains. Anytime you're trying to find an average, you're going to add things together and get a great big total and divide it by the number of things you have. So if we're looking for average revenue, all we're going to do is have total revenue divided by quantity. It's the same pattern. We're just keeping our revenue terms together. Now wait a second. There's a shortcut to that because total revenue is price times quantity. So if you rewrite that, price times quantity over quantity, then all you're left with is price. What that means, guys, is that your average revenue is always equal to your price. Your price and your average revenue numbers will always be the same. No matter what type of business that we're talking about, your price is always equal to your average revenue, and that's always going to be found on your demand curve. Well, we had total revenue, which is how much money we bring in from selling everything. Average revenue, which was how much money we bring in from selling one thing. So our next term, as you can probably guess, is marginal revenue. Now, since marginal means extra, you know that marginal revenue is how much money we bring in when we sell one more unit of output or when we sell an extra thing. So remember, marginals are always going to have the change in or the deltas in their equations. So marginal revenue is just the change in total revenue over the change in quantity. How does our total revenue change whenever we change our quantity and sell one more item? So based on the patterns we've already learned, it's pretty easy to catch on to our revenue terms. Now let's talk about our profit terms. Now, profit is the money that you get to keep from your revenue after you've paid your cost. So you have a big pattern that you can use for all of your profit terms. That is R minus C equals profit. Revenue minus your cost is your profit. Now, our terms are obviously going to be total profit, average profit, and marginal profit, but wait a second. When we start to do our abbreviations on this, it can be really confusing if we have average profit AP and marginal profit MP, because we already had abbreviations like that. We had average productivity and marginal productivity. Well, we don't want to get these things confused. So here's what we're going to do with our profit terms. Instead of using the English symbol for the letter P to represent profit, we are going to simply use the Greek symbol for the letter P, which is pi, to represent profit. Now, this has nothing to do with the number, so don't have like nightmares about circumference and everything else, circles, blah. All right. We're just using it for the alphabetical symbolization. So when we do total profit, that's going to be T and a little pi symbol after that to represent profit. average profit would be A and a little pi symbol. That way it's totally different from AP, which is our average productivity level from one worker. So let's talk through these three profit terms. Total profit, T pi, is obviously all of the money that you get to keep after you have made and sold all of your output. So it's really what we're trying to maximize. Remember our pattern. Profit is revenue minus cost. So if we're looking for total profit, we're going to use that same pattern, but we're just going to put a T in front of everything in that pattern because we're looking for total profit. So total profit is nothing more than total revenue minus total cost. Well, our next term, of course, is going to be average profit. We know that average always means how much for one. So average profit is the money you keep after you've made and sold one unit. This is just profit per unit. Any average is a total divided by quantity. So if we want to find average profit, then we're just going to do total profit divided by quantity. Now there's another way to find average profit. If we do average revenue minus our average total cost, then that's going to leave us with the profit for that one unit, average profit. Notice it's that same base pattern. Revenue minus cost is profit. We just have an A in front of everything because we're looking for the average. Finally, our last profit term, of course, is going to be marginal profit. Now, you know that marginal means extra, so marginal profit is going to be the additional profit that you get to keep when you make and sell one more unit of output. Marginal profit is just going to be the change in total profit over the change in quantity. And there's another way to find marginal profit. Remember we said any profit is the money you have left over from your revenue after you've paid your cost. So when we do marginal profit, we're going to use that same pattern and we're going to put M's in front of everything to make it marginal. MR is the extra money you bring in when you sell one more unit. MC is how much extra it costs to make that unit. And then what you have left over is your marginal profit. Now at this point, let me go ahead and talk to you about the profit maximization rule. In a little while, we're going to start talking about different types of firms and we're going to start looking at some of their cost and revenue on a graph. And one of the main key things, like one of the essential things that you have to be able to do is identify their profit maximizing output. That is one of those critical essential skills, just as important as being able to identify equilibrium. Let me walk you through it step by step. Now, what type of profit are we trying to maximize, guys? We have three types of profit: total profit, average profit, marginal profit. Which of those profits do you think we're trying to maximize? Probably total profit, right? We want our overall total profit to be as high as possible at the end of the day. Remember how in the past couple of lessons we've been talking about how marginal is the slope of total? Well, when your marginal is at 0, your total is at its highest. Think back to when we did pizza and noodles, and we also saw this same relationship with our productivity terms. In each of these applications, marginal utility or marginal productivity increased at first and then decreased, crossed over the x-axis at 0, and went negative. And our total curve, whether it was total utility or total output, as long as that marginal was positive, our total was increasing. When that marginal was 0, our total was at its highest point. And when that marginal was negative, our total was falling. So think about those graphs. If we want our total to be at its highest point, what does marginal have to be? It has to be 0. It stands to reason that our total profit will be maximized when our marginal profit is 0. Now sometimes students are looking at that and they're like, ooh, a marginal profit that's 0, that sounds terrible. You're not trying to maximize your marginal profit, you're trying to maximize your total profit. What does it mean if your marginal profit is 0? That means that you have produced and sold all of those units that you're going to be able to earn a positive profit on. So you've already made and sold all those units that you're going to bring in more money than you're going to spend. And you can stop before you start spending more money than you're going to bring in, because that would be a negative profit, right? Now, how do we get marginal profit to be 0? Think about one of the equations that I just gave you for marginal profit. Remember that any profit is revenue minus cost. Well, marginal profit was marginal revenue minus marginal cost. So here's a little math challenge for you, okay? How do we get marginal profit to equal 0? You got it. Marginal revenue and marginal cost have to be the same value, have to be the same number. So here is our rule for profit maximization. This is like the golden rule for profit maximization. You just really want to make sure you understand this. This is a critical idea. A company will maximize its total profit at the output level where MR and MC are equal to each other. If your MR and MC are equal to each other, then your marginal profit is 0. That means you've got all the positive and you stop before the negative, so that means that your total profit is as high as it can possibly go. Now, this is such an important concept. I mean, I know some of y'all, you're 17, maybe you're turning 18, and one of the things students tend to think about is like, oh, maybe I want to get my first tattoo or whatever. Can I just throw out MR equals MC as a possibility for your first tattoo? Like, it's that important. Just kidding, all right? And I haven't had any students take me up on that, which I guess is good. But I just really can't stress the importance of this profit maximization rule. Honestly, guys, if there's one thing that after you're done with this class, you forget everything else, but you have one haunting thing in your mind, it needs to be MR equals MC, all right? So total profit is always maximized where MR equals MC. Why? Because when MR equals MC, marginal profit is 0, and since marginal is the slope of total, when marginal is 0, total is at its highest. That means you've gotten all the positive profit that you can, and you've stopped before you lose money, before you go into the negative profit or the loss zone. So after we do a little bit of practice with this and you get used to it, you should be able just to look at a picture and instantly it should just jump right out at you. Alrighty guys, I know that all these terms feel a little bit like an alphabet soup. You have ATC and TVC, and now you have MR, and then you have TPI, alright? But don't focus on all the different terms, please focus on the patterns. Well, you keep practicing with this and I know you're going to get it in no time. So until later, MR equals MC.